Welcome back to France Made Simple, the podcast where I reveal anything and everything that might be relevant to your life in France. Today I'm talking about ways to save money here in France, and this is a subject that's always been close to my heart, and never more so than right now. Every time I go to the shops or fill the car up, it seems to cost more than the last time. So unless you're listening to this from the deck of your super yacht or the in your cabin on your Learjet and you're not particularly bothered, hopefully there'll be at least one tip in here that might save you some money. Now, the first thing I'm going to suggest you do is shop off season. And here, the potential savings really are the sky's the limit, depending on what you're planning to buy. I've saved huge amounts of money this way on numerous occasions, and I think one of my best purchases was a new wood-burning stove. These can run into the thousands if you want a decent one, but if you make a mental note to look out for the kind of off-season sale that normally happens in August, obviously because nobody's lighting fires in August, you can snag yourself a massive bargain. I got mine with I think 40% reduction and saved myself a fortune. Now, above ground swimming pools and especially ex-display models are also heavily discounted as soon as the DIY sheds decide that barbecue season is over. They start removing the pools and jacuzzis and replacing them with garden sheds and wood stores. So if you've got any large purchases coming up over the next 12 months, it's really well worth grabbing your diary or planner and making a note of roughly when you should be looking for bargains. You just need to think about when that item is going to be used. Is it a summer item or a winter item? And kind of make a mental note to look at the opposite time of year. Now, it's not just big ticket items like swimming pools and planchas that you can save on. Almost anything seasonal is going to drop in price once the shops start clearing space for the next wave of stock. So, winter coats start becoming bargains when spring arrives and the sales start. And the same goes for any summer items. Prices always drop once the cooler weather kicks in. And much the same applies for anything home and garden related. Decorations are heavily discounted as soon as Christmas is over, and even before sometimes, once the shops have decided that anyone sane would have already got their decorations up. And items like tools or outdoor gear are often marked down when stores make room for new collections. So even practical stuff like, I don't know, fans and heaters follow this pattern. You'll find the best deals are always available when the season, in inverted commas, has just finished and no one else is looking. So the trick really is to buy when demand is low and store it away from when you're going to need it. Obviously, if your fan breaks in the height of summer and you need a new one, you're not going to have that luxury of waiting. But if it's a kind of premeditated, pre-planned purchase, if you can plan ahead, you will be surprised at how much you can save without compromising on quality. Now, the next thing you can do is get those credit cards working for you. And again, the potential savings here can be fairly extensive if you pay off the balance in full and make the most of any rewards that are on offer, sorry. People are often wary of credit cards and credit, but they don't have to be the enemy if you know how to play them right. And in fact, they can actually give you a little boost each year just for spending on the things that you were already going to pay for anyway. And I think the key here is choosing a card that matches your lifestyle. So, for example, if you're always food shopping, think about one that rewards you for doing just that. So, for example, if you get the Carrefour card, it gives you all of the normal carte pass advantages, benefits rather. Sorry, brain's gone into franglais again. So that means you got 15% off all Carrefour branded products, 15% off fruit and veg and anything that is Carrefour bio or organic. Plus, you get reserved tills, which, if you happen to live near a supermarket where there's never enough people on duty at the till, that is quite a benefit, actually. Not worth paying for on its own, but it's a nice additional plus. And then you can pay in 3, 10, or even 20 times staged payments to manage your budget, and even put off paying for 3 months if you need to. So maybe that is something that might be useful for a really big Christmas shop or something. And you can also apply for loans. So if you do a lot of food shopping, if you use a local Carrefour, if that's your nearest supermarket and that offers the best value for money in your area, then it's probably worth doing all of that shopping on a Carrefour credit card. Equally, if travelling is your thing, look for a card that offers you air miles or hotel points. Again, if you use this and those points add up, that can be a real saving when you come to travel. For everything else, I would say a simple cashback card. A cashback card is probably going to be the best for anybody. The trick here is to put all your regular expenses like utilities, groceries, or insurance on the card so that you're kind of racking up the rewards without changing your spending habits. But there's always a but. Here's the non-negotiable part. The balance has to be paid off in full right away. The second you let interest start kicking in, the benefits vanish, or rather, the extra interest you're going to pay outweighs any savings or any air miles or hotel points or rewards or discount vouchers. And I'd also recommend sticking to just 1 or 2 cards so that you can really keep track of where you are and maximise your savings. If you're good at sticking to budgets and managing your outgoings, this is a really easy way to collect a few hundred extra euros a year. If, however, you're likely to get tempted into spending more, be careful. You might be better off steering clear and sticking with a kind of more traditional debit card. Now, another way you can save money in France is opting for a staycation instead of a holiday. And obviously, again, potential savings here can be huge in comparison to the cost of flights, accommodation, and trips abroad. And this is a really easy one for those of us who are living in France, because there is so much to discover in France, so many different regions, and so much different food. I've travelled a fair bit and I've only really just scratched the surface. Plus, having a staycation, or at least staying in the same country, usually means we can take the dog with us. So we save money on kennel fees, and anyway, we'd rather have her with us. And it's nice going on holiday with a dog. Obviously, not if it's a beach holiday, but the rest of the year, hiking, walking, visiting the mountains. Dogs are great. Having a dog is a great excuse to get outside and make sure you do some exercise on holiday so you don't just eat yourself stupid. So far this year, we've been to the Morvan. We've been to 3 completely different parts of Brittany. We've had 48 hours in Paris and had 2 separate weekends in the Cotentin, the peninsula, which is in the north corner of France. And with the exception of 1 week in Brittany, where we did book a cheap gîte, we've stayed with friends or family. So this has been a really relatively very cost-effective way to get away. Now, I know not everybody has family dotted around France. This is obviously one of the plus points of dating a Frenchman. But out of season or last minute gîte and chambre d'hôte bookings can be a huge bargain. And if you're travelling alone, then sites like Host a Sister or Couchsurfing are a really good budget option. You also don't even need to leave home to have a staycation. There are always places you've heard about but never got round to visiting. Could be somewhere on the coast, just that bit further than where you usually go to the beach, or maybe a little inland town with sort of great food or a well-known market or a Michelin-starred restaurant. Just get the map out and look at anywhere within a couple of hours drive, which can be quite a long way in France because the roads are so good and the traffic so minimal. Get up early and go. I would say treat it the same way you would if you were traveling abroad for a proper holiday. Plan ahead, maybe even book somewhere to stay overnight and line up a few activities so it feels like a real trip away. So you could, for example, you could go and visit a local vineyard, hike up a mountain, try a restaurant that you've heard is, worth going to or has been recommended by friends. There's loads and loads of things you can do to make even a kind of small mini break feel like a proper holiday. Now, you can also save huge amounts of money when it comes to cooking and meal planning. Probably more money than you would think. Batch cooking is something that we do a lot of, especially often on a Sunday or if the weather isn't great. Given that most recipes are designed for 4 people, and by the time you've purchased some of the ingredients, if it's stuff you don't have in, it's often really practical to prepare the dish, but double the proportion. So you're cooking for 8 people. Obviously, this doesn't work if there's 7 of you for dinner, but if there's 4, double it. Then you can freeze 50% of what you've cooked. Or equally, cook for 4, and if there's only 2 of you, same principle. But freeze your leftovers. And batch cooking doesn't mean you need to eat the same thing every day till you're sick and tired of it. I think the real trick is to prepare kind of ready meal ingredients, if you like, instead of full on meals. So, for example, last night we pre cooked a ton of chard, basically because it's out of control in the vegetable patch and we needed to do something with it. But we had some for lunch today with mushrooms and tomatoes added in, and the rest has been popped into freezer containers and is then going to get used in various different dishes when we fancy some chard. I really recommend either having a huge collection of Tupperware type containers that are all the same shape for freezer stacking, or buy those disposable containers in silver foil that takeaways come in, because the lids are really easy to label and they're the perfect size to freeze ready meals, in inverted commas, in individual or couple or even family size portions. They stack really well too. And I always freeze any leftovers straight away so that they don't get forgotten and not used up in the fridge. And anyway, who wants to eat the same thing 2 nights in a row? But if you've got a really clearly labelled freezer stash, it means you've got healthy, homemade ready meals without extra shopping or prep. And this has saved me both money, time, and stress. There's no temptation to do that last minute run to the supermarket and impulse shop when I know there's something quick, healthy, and homemade waiting in the fridge or the freezer. And given that when you live in a rural area in France, the supermarkets are often several kilometres in either direction, all of those little runs out to the supermarket or the shops do add up in terms of vehicle wear and tear, tyres, petrol, etc., etc. So you're kind of saving money in 2 ways here. The next thing you can do is share subscriptions. And again, the savings you can make here do vary. It depends on how many subscriptions you have. But they kind of sneak up on you if you're not careful, because these days it seems like you need to sign up for something just to get out of bed. And it's so easy to become a member of X, Y, and Z and then forget about it. Now, gym membership often seems to come into this category. But what you can do to keep your costs down is to share the expense with people that you trust, really well, really close friends or family members. So, for example, one of my girlfriends joined a gym that offered a special deal for couples, but they let her share it with her mum, which saved them both quite a bit of money. And between the two of them, they got value for money because they both kind of kicked each other up the bum to actually go. Now, when it comes to streaming services like Netflix and Spotify, if you get a family plan, you're often allowed multiple users, which makes it much more affordable. And if you set up automatic payments, nobody has to nag or chase anybody else up for their share. It's also worthwhile thinking about how you're paying for stuff, because often annual membership costs less than paying monthly, and the difference can really add up over time. And it's also well worth doing a kind of check-in or a little audit every few months to see what you're still using. So, and if you've not been using a service, cancel it. Or you could switch between a couple of favourites instead of paying for them all year. So go from Netflix to Amazon Prime or something like that. Now, when it comes to lowering your monthly bills, you can do a lot here. And one of the simplest ways to cut costs is just pick up the phone or get online and ask the question. Most of us assume that our outgoings are fixed, but that's rarely the case. Almost all companies have wiggle room, and especially if you've been with them a while, because they don't want to lose you as a customer. So when it comes to stuff like internet packages, phone plans, car insurance, even gym membership, all of this can be negotiated if you ask the right questions and basically threaten/imply you'll be taking your custom elsewhere. Now, apparently timing matters here. I haven't made enough notes or made enough phone calls. I mean, I've made enough phone calls, but I've never noted down the time to actually 100% confirm this. But a few people have told me that if you call mid-morning or on a Tuesday or Thursday, you get shorter waiting times. I can't confirm that, but I can confirm that if you phone anyone in France, anywhere, about anything, either just before lunchtime or on a Friday afternoon, forget it. You're going to get short shrift because they will just want to get you off the phone ASAP, because it's either A, time to eat, or B, time to go home for the weekend. So be polite on the phone, but basically let them know you found a better offer elsewhere. And if you've got a competitor's price in front of you, then it kind of makes it clear that you're serious, you've done your homework, and you will be moving your business. If that person can't or won't help, ask for somebody else in customer services, or go back another day if it's, for example, you're popping into your local Orange boutique to negotiate a phone package. Because I have to say, the level of customer service in Orange shops, in my experience, varies enormously, from incredibly helpful, accommodating, and will go out of their way to get you the best possible offer, to absolutely bloody useless. So if you get absolutely bloody useless, I would highly recommend go back and try again. I've done this myself so many times over the years, and it's just amazing how quickly you can get a discount once you ask the questions. And the worst that's going to happen is they'll say no, but more often than not, they'll work with you to keep your business, because it's easier to keep an existing customer than acquire a new one. Now, when it comes to buying stuff, always buy secondhand. Buying secondhand, or pre-loved as people like to say these days, can save you a fortune, and it's fun. France is full of vide maison, or yard sales for our American listeners. Vide grenier, which are the equivalent of car boot sales, dépôt vente, and brocante, where items are deposited for sale or up for sale by the owners if it's a brocante. But you need a plan. If you walk in there without an objective, you're often going to walk out with things you don't really need, which is not necessarily saving yourself money. I found it works best when you go in with a really clear idea of what you're looking for, whether that be a winter coat, a bookshelf, or a Le Creuset saucepan. And the real wins often come from knowing when and where to shop. Now, charity shops, as we know them in the UK, are quite rare in France, especially outside of big cities. They exist, but just they're not in the same quantity that they do in the UK. But they do exist, and shops in wealthier neighbourhoods tend to have higher quality stock in the form of donations. But brocante solidaire are springing up all over France now. People donate all kinds of stuff, from clothing to board games to furniture, and this is then sold at incredibly low prices so that it's affordable for everybody. And if you time your visits around the days when they restock, it gives you the best pick, the first pick of what's on offer. So, for example, when I lived near Po, we had a massive Emmaus there, and I would always go on a Tuesday afternoon because that was the opening day for the week, and all the different sections would have been restocked the day before. It's always a good idea to give everything a once over before you buy, because obviously it's a charity shop or a brocante, they won't take stuff back. So check the zips on clothing, look at furniture for woodworms, so on and so forth. Every now and again I've made a huge mistake and bought something that wasn't worth anything, but it's been very rare, and I've acquired amazing clothing and amazing stuff for the house over the years from buying secondhand. When it comes to food shopping, you can also switch to own label or top budget products, which make a real dent in your grocery bill. And very often the contents are exactly the same. It's just the packaging that differs. But there's always a but. You do need to check the labels. There's no point buying the cheap tin of pineapple only to get it home and discover that it contains syrup and not juice. There you go. Excuse me, another little mistake I made, so you don't have to. But once you get to know your products and you've checked the labels and you're happy with the ingredients, you can definitely opt for the economy range if you're just as happy with that. And there's actually an app which I need to find, and I'll put it in the show notes. My other half uses it, where you can check the provenance of products and work out where they are made, because very often items are identical no matter whose label is on the box, and many of these items are made in the same factories. This is especially true when it comes to stuff like biscuits. And one of the kids worked this summer in the Bon Maman factory. Well, it's not called that, but it's the factory that makes all the Bon Maman biscuits, but they also make a load of other biscuits, more basic biscuits, that, surprise, surprise, have exactly the same ingredients in. So very often, basic stuff such as white flour and vinegar, white sugar, table salt and bleach are also exactly the same quality, whether you pay extra or not. Sometimes, for example, the toilet cleaning bleach that you get, if you pay a bit more, it's thicker and it doesn't run so much. So you have to work out, is it more cost effective to lose a bit of extra, more liquid bleach every time you pour it down the loo or not? It's a calculation that everybody has to make. But the same goes for medicine that you buy over the counter. The active ingredients are the same. So you can save a fortune, for example, by requesting, I don't know, generic Imodium and not the brand name. But if there's a particular brand you really love, because of the taste, or even if the packaging makes you feel, it reminds you of home, just buy it when it's on offer. So, eating should stay a pleasure, and saving money doesn't mean giving up on everything that matters to you. And the last thing you can do is turn all of your loose change into, I'm going to say, savings in inverted commas. It's not really savings, but it's just a nice bonus. We always save all of our loose change, and it adds up so quickly. These days, you don't even need a jar to save your coins, because some bank cards do the rounding up for you every time you make a purchase. So, for example, if your shopping bill comes to, let's say, €48, 70 centimes, the bank card will save the extra 30 centimes for you, and put it into a separate account. You fill up your car for 68.25, and another 75 centimes go straight into that savings account. You don't have to think about it, because it all happens automatically. And what I like most about this method is how painless it is. You're not making big transfers or setting aside chunks of money that you'll miss. It's just tiny amounts that would otherwise slip away without you even noticing. But over a few months, those little amounts start to look quite impressive, and you can either then stick this into a proper savings account or treat yourself to something nice. I would always let mine to get to around €100 and then use it for something constructive. The other thing you can do is to keep all of your loose change in a pot. We save anything below 50 centimes, and then take it periodically to one of the machines that you can find in most big supermarkets these days, that magically turn all of your coppers into, I can't say proper money or money, because it doesn't actually turn it into money, but what it does is give you a voucher. And I love doing this because the kind of child in me loves pouring my coppers into a machine, having add them up, and then giving me a voucher to be spent in the store. The last time we did this with a fairly full jar, I think we got an €18 voucher. The one caveat here is that if you lose the voucher, you are stuffed. So spend it instantly is my advice so that you don't forget about it. And guard it with your life when wandering around the shop so that you don't drop it in the vegetable section, as I did. I was lucky enough to find it again. And like I say, the France Made Simple podcast is here so that you don't have to make the same mistakes I have, or I do, or I probably will continue to do. Anyway, I hope that's been useful. Hopefully it's been interesting. Hopefully you've got at least one tip out of that you can put into play in your life in France and save a bit more money painlessly, easily and simply. Thank you very much for listening and see you next time.